Hello, good morning, and welcome to this fifth episode, wow, of SheLeads in Tech. My name is Lydia, and today I'm with my lovely host, Jacqueline Smith, and we'll be discussing the topic, harnessing the power of personal branding. Thank you for being here, Jacqueline.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. It's an exciting topic to talk about, one that doesn't come naturally to me. So actually, it's quite a nice one to talk about. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you. So just to give a bit of an intro into the subject. So of course, we all know and love many brands that we use and associate with on a daily basis. However, when it comes to ourselves, we rarely think of ourselves as a brand. So today will be, just getting a better understanding of what personal branding is and how we can use that to support our growth and development. But just before we jump into all that, just get to know you better. Can you tell us about you and your amazing career progression to date?
Sure. Class is amazing. But so my background, so I spent about 13 years in tech and telecoms. Doing lots of different roles, but they all kind of centered around product in some way, whether it was more of a product marketing and commercial role or a bit more strategic or product management, product development, insights, a bit of all of it. It was all kind of centered around that product function. Yeah. So I was doing that for about 13 years across kind of Relish Broadband, which is a startup where we know each other, to some kind of bigger organizations like BT and 3. And it got to the point where I've always wanted to start my own business, and I love the product job role in terms of the different elements that it does, but I've fallen out with or didn't love kind of the subject matter as much as kind of I once did, and I wanted to do something that I felt was giving back and kind of starting things up on my own. So 3 had a bit of a shake up, as we know, and it was the time for me kind of where that was a decision point to me where do I want to stay there or do I want to go and kind of take this opportunity to try out my own thing, and so I took the opportunity to go and try out my own thing. And Nookray came about because and with a mutual friend of ours as well, kind of in the very early days, we were both very big conscious consumers ourselves, so did a lot of research into the brands we bought. But there's lots of eco brands out there, and good ones, but they're really hard to find. Yeah. And you have to filter through a lot of noise about which ones actually work and which ones don't. The greenwashing, and we really trying to understand all the different elements of what you should and shouldn't be looking out for. And so that was the problem we started trying to solve, and we did it as a resell of our tried and tested favorites. This wasn't necessarily the long-term business vision. As much as anything, it with quite a low entry to market, we were able to get in there, start speaking to customers face to face, get to know the market that we weren't in. And it gave me then some breathing space to think about what the long-term plan is with Nookray. And so we incorporated September last year, and the plan for Nookray is to be your waste-free refills, so all of your household essentials, and we'll do refills for it. And that's where kind of I am today. So brand launch, first range of products launched. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Thanks for sharing that. And I guess it's just what highlighting that you've had a remarkable journey from coming from working in a small organization, Relish was, to go into, looking after branding in a big organization, which 3 is, and then making that entire complete shift to founding your own, I'll say your own empire, because it's an empire you're building around.
Small one.
Well, things grow, so we need to watch this space for Nookray. So thanks for sharing all of that. So I'm going to jump into the questions I have here already, just start to take a deep dive into the topic. So what is personal branding and why is it important to have one?
Sure. Well, So I kind of like two descriptions when it comes to branding in general. And one is about what do people say about you when you're not in the room? That's kind of your reputation. And also the other definition I like is it's the sum of all of your experience with an organization or with a person. And it's interesting actually that you say, for example, when I worked at 3, that kind of I was looking after the branding. I think sometimes, particularly if you're within the marketing function, you can get kind of quite hung up on like brand versus product versus advertising versus customer experience, but actually they all come together, and all some of that is really the brand that a customer perceives. Yeah. So it isn't really just the logo or just the appearance. And then if you think about kind of your personal brand and what that means, I think sometimes the word personal brand can sometimes put people off. It sometimes feels a bit fluffy, doesn't it? But another way I can like think about it is essentially it's your reputation. And in terms of why is it necessary to have one, I think you have a reputation anyway. Can't really get out of it. If you've had an interaction with somebody, they've got an opinion about you, whether that be good, bad, a strong opinion, a not particularly strong opinion, they think something. So really what I think we're trying to do with personal brand is trying to just own what that reputation is. And that's, what it is, I suppose, in practical terms.
Yeah, because I guess it's easy to think about big brands like Apple, Google, Facebook, because we use them every day. So we know, love some, hate some, and all of that. But in terms of a personal brand, I guess it's not something we intuitively think about. We don't intuitively think about ourselves as brand. So what would you say are the key foundations for building a personal brand?
Yeah. So I think throughout this conversation, I'll probably use the word personal brand and reputation interchangeably, because I think it makes it it can make it more relatable to people that are just kind of put off by the word personal brand. But I think the first thing is knowing what you want your personal brand or reputation to be. What do you want people to say about you when you're not in the room? So do you want people to say that you're great at delivery, you're a great team leader, you're a great thought leader, a subject matter expert on something? And if you know, and it doesn't have to be one thing, and it can change over time, over the slate of your career, but if you know what you want people to be saying about you and what you want to be known for, then it's a lot easier to start getting feedback from people, on quite specific feedback about kind of what you want to be known for. Yeah. And you've then really got a foundation for being able to develop a plan there from what you're working on day to day, and talking about people, kind of what you want more experience in, and developing the skills that you need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that's a really good point there. I guess talking in the tech space about what you want to be known for is something that is quite dear to my heart, because those different aspects of, do you want to be known as the go-to person for testing or delivery or product management and all of that, they're all important in the tech space when it comes to what people know and recognize you for. So leading on to the next question is that point, and it's really, how do you use personal brand as a tool in the tech space?
Yeah, so I think really it's the tech space is obviously a great example, because there is a good level of knowledge you need about the technology you're working with. But I think a lot of it is relatable across kind of different industries. And I think having a strong personal brand or strong reputation on something just gives you that credibility. I think that authenticity in a space where people will believe you or come to you for those things in future. And if you're known about being good for something, that's a key tool for influencing people. And you'll be that go-to person for that space. And also, if you've got that credibility and that authenticity, if you then want to become a thought leader in that space, or want to get a promotion off of it, it all makes those things a lot easier. You're sphere of influence is easier because people believe you and you've got that credibility in that space.
Yeah, well, that's good. And you touched in the beginning, and you said, well, we all have a personal brand anyway, whether we're aware
Yeah.
or not. And I guess it sounds a bit tragic because it's that thing of, you know, what am I projecting as a person or as a company? And in the well, in the popular space, for example, when you think about Instagram, for example, as a brand, you know, it's the place where you go for all your inspiration, fashion, you know, people do a lot in that space. And I guess even without having the right words to articulate what Instagram does personally, you know, subconsciously, I know what it does and how it fits into my life and all of that. So there's a self-awareness that comes with branding, whether it's an individual or an organizational brand. Could you explain how to develop that self-awareness of one's own personal brand?
Yeah. So I think it is always easier when you think about it in terms of an organizational personal brand, because you can look at it more objectively. It isn't so personal. I think the personal brand and again, organizational brand are just so interlinked. I think the key thing is asking for feedback. So people, and asking for specific feedback on that kind of thing you want to be known for, and that can help you layer up, well, is that how I thought I was being perceived in that area? And I think a lot of the time, if you are quite a self-aware person, you do know yourself. You'll come out of a project or a meeting or a delivery and you'll be able to assess yourself, or did I do well in that? And what could I do better? And then validating that and kind of supplementing that with feedback from other people. And I think it's just that practice. I'm quite naturally a reflector, borderline and overthinker, but then I quite naturally do look back and kind of reflect on kind of what could I have done better. But I think if you're not that type of person, I think it's worth kind of putting in after a project to look back, and then just making sure, ask for people for whose opinions you value, but asking a range of people that feedback to see how it matches up.
Thank you. Good. So if feedback reveals a negative perception, how can this be changed?
Yeah, so this question is a hard one. I think it comes from a few different ways to look at it. It's just generally negative feedback, I think is you kind of have to look at it each individually. So you're not going to be perfect 100% of the time. Not everyone is going to like you or kind of think you're great. So I think you are going to get, if you do get negative feedback, then I think it's looking, well, is that feedback based on what I want to be known for? Is it something I can address? Yeah. But then I suppose if it's feedback that you can address and it's delivered in the right way that kind of tells you, an honest view of how you were perceived and why, then that's something actionable that you can go away and address. If it's just negative, then I think it's probably worth having a look at, is it their bad days or your bad day? But, take all feedback and have a look at it. But you probably need to filter through who it's coming from and the context of it. And then you can look at if and what action you take off the back of it. And that's why I think it's important to get feedback from a range of people, but also people whose opinion you value. For example, if you're sitting in a test meeting and there's a big technical problem, for example, then and you get a feedback from somebody who doesn't understand that technical issue saying you're bad at your job, that's not an accurate reflection. So they're not necessarily a valuable person for you to be getting feedback on how well you're doing, because they don't understand the job role in the context. Whereas someone from a manager or from an engineer who kind of understood the problem, that'd be a person to go and get feedback from about how you handled the test issue, because they get your options. So I think it's always just worth putting the context around the feedback.
Yeah, but that's a really good point to make, because I guess depending on who you ask for feedback and how they perceive you, one person might be more critical, and I guess it's quite important to filter through what feedback is constructive.
Yeah, and there's a skill in asking for feedback, because if we use that same example, I suppose, where you running a test issue and you came up with a test, and you came up with a test issue, you wouldn't go to that person who wasn't technical to say, how well did I approach the technicality of addressing that test issue and looking at options, and how I adjusted my test plan. You would go to the engineer for that, not the person that wasn't technical. But if your kind of thing that you wanted to develop was around acting confident and organizing your presentation skills or simplifying technical information, then that person who wasn't technical would be a really good person to go to and say, how confidently did I present it, or how well did I break down the issue for you? Yeah. So it's important, I think, when you go to people, you don't say, can I get some feedback on that meeting? You say, this is what, can I get some feedback on these specific things?
Yes.
And then you'll get a lot more actionable stuff. And if it's negative, then you can always go and find an action plan to develop it. Me personally, if I want to get better at something, I just throw myself into it and do it again and again and again. But that's not necessarily the right thing. It's kind of different people approach it kind of differently. But
yeah, no, that's good. And in terms of developing a personal brand, how does individual values, purpose, and authenticity fit in?
I think they're kind of a crucial part of it. And I think it's probably worth looking at, well, I suppose your values and your purpose. If you've kind of got a clear view on what your value and your purpose is, then it gives you credibility then with what you're trying to be known for. But I wouldn't try and get too hung up on what that value and purpose is, as long as they are genuine. It doesn't have to be particularly kind of altruistic, or it doesn't have to be a huge value about trying to save the world, or purpose about trying to save the world. It's just, it could be, your purpose is to be a better manager, which actually is quite a big thing in itself. Or your purpose could be to help break down particular topics for your organization, to upskill your organization, or it could be things like that.
Yeah.
But if you kind of understand what your purpose and what you ought to be known for, and why being, well, what does that mean kind of in the medium term, and why as in, why does it matter to me? And then I think you're in a really good place then for working on that reputation and building upon that.
Yeah. And I just want to draw out a bit around your own experience setting up Nookray, because you said in the beginning that you were looking at what was in the market for eco-friendly products. And I guess that came from a place of personal value, right? It was something you always had in yourself as a driver, something you value, something you believe in, and that has now driven this turnaround in your career from working in the telecom, founding your own company that embodies that eco-friendly ethos.
Yeah, but I think it comes from two places and kind of two values and purposes there. I could, from having that value, go and work for a charity or Greenpeace or something, but I didn't. I went to set up my own business. Yes. And I think being honest with myself with my kind of values and purposes, I've always wanted to kind of start my own business, and there's an achievement value attached to that. And I think I have to be honest with myself that that's what it is. It isn't just a business to save the world. And I think it's important for me that with what I do with my business is helping the planet and doing good, and it's got great supply chains and helping kind of take plastic waste or whatever I can to give back. But the reason why I have done that through setting up my own business is because it's something I've always wanted to do, and yeah, just being honest with myself about that.
Yeah. So I guess to summarize that, understanding your motivations and values is key.
Yeah, that's said a lot more eloquently than I said it. Yeah.
Fine. And in your experience, are there any crossovers between what you've done creating Nookray as a brand and what people need to do to create their own personal brand?
Yeah, so I think there's huge crossover, and I personally find organizational brands a lot easier to look at and plan for. As I said kind of at the beginning, personal brand side of things doesn't necessarily come as naturally to me. It isn't something that I've spent a lot of time actively working on through a lot of my career, but having started my own business, I identified that it's something that I need to take control of a bit more. I think there's so much overlap. When you look at the two definitions I had at the beginning of a brand, and that was your sum of all of your experiences and what do people say about you when you're not in the room, that's the same for personal brand and an organizational brand. It's just at different scales and involves a different number of people, but that process of understanding what you want to stand for, what you want to be known for, and then how do I make sure there are credentials that sit underneath that, and then how do I communicate that at do my best to communicate that at all touch points. I think it's the same for both.
Okay, good. And social media.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're in the thick of it now. What role does that need to play in creating a personal brand? I mean, do we all need to have a name to become influencers, or is it something that can happen outside the social media space?
So this is quite a personal view, and it comes from my experiences and kind of my natural kind of go-to with social media. I absolutely don't think it does have to have anything to do with social media. If you look back on what you want to be known for and why, I think you can then think about, well, how do I, and what kind of you want your reputation to be. Then you think about, well, is it to get a promotion in work, or is it to find a new opportunity? Or if it's about thought leadership, then you do really need to make sure you're amplifying your thoughts. So I would really take a look at that and thinking about, well, what's my purpose? What am I trying to achieve? And then how's the best way to communicate that? If your focus is more organizational led or something that fits within your existing network, then you don't have to be worrying a lot about social media. But what I would say, and this is a development point for me, is I do think that there is a place, even if in the short term you don't want new opportunities, to be keeping on top of, for example, LinkedIn and things could open up new opportunities that you didn't know existed that you might want. So whilst I don't think just about appearances on social media is the be all and end all for most people, I think actually using it as a networking tool, being open with people about what you want and being active on there could open up new opportunities and new development points that wouldn't have come across if you weren't networking. But you can network in other ways as well. So it could be that you're going to weekly networking sessions face to face, which would probably do a similar thing. So it doesn't have to be social media, but I do think probably have a look at what it could do to enhance what you're trying to achieve. And that's something I have to actively make myself do, because it doesn't come naturally to me. I have to think, what time it takes me to write a post versus some other people is ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, I just had to ask that question because it's the age we're all in, and there's a whole spectrum of what people do personally. So people who share absolutely everything, and people who are not comfortable to do
Mm.
that. But as you say, it's something, in a way, whether we like it or not, it's come to stay. So it can be a tool, and I guess, but
It
that's
can be a tool. I
yeah,
think I would also say it's something to be conscious of. So particularly with, say, careers, people recognize now that you need to be careful of Instagram because of, well, to compare yourself on Instagram because people show their highlights, which is absolutely valid. And I think it's the same thing for LinkedIn as well, is that, of course, if you're looking at how you'll use LinkedIn, you'll think about, well, how can I put my best self forward?
yes,
And that's totally acceptable. But then you need to remember then that what other people are posting is the same, so that don't compare yourself to other people. Use it as a tool to learn and network and engage people and engage with content. But I would be careful about over comparing. Remember that, you know, they are deciding what they put on there.
yeah, but it can be a useful,
Oh, absolutely, yeah, yeah.
the
No, I think,
facilitate, as you said earlier, that amplification of, what your values are and what you want to be known for.
yeah, yeah, no, yeah, totally. I think it's something I need to make sure I do, and as I say, it doesn't come naturally to me. It comes a lot more naturally to other people.
Dear. Learning point for all of us.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Good. And in terms of that learning and development, how important is what you do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis is to establishing that personal brand?
Um, so again, this is my view, and other people might have different answers. I think there are, so probably two answers that might sound a little bit contradictory, but first, again, when you go back to the definition of a brand being the sum of all your experiences, then you do need to be consistent in what you're doing. You can't just deliver one small thing once and be known for delivering things well. You kind of need to be consistent in delivering well to get that reputation. But that should come more naturally to you if you had then taken that thought process about, well, what do you want to be known for, and just delivering consistently. But I don't think you necessarily need to be taking on loads of additional actions day to day to work on your personal brand or your reputation. It's probably something you do ad hocly, like as a quarterly thing, as part of your review cycle. You have a look at, well, what do I want to be known for? Am I working on the right kind of things? You might pick up actions from that to network with different people, or to connect with one new person on LinkedIn, or watch one new YouTube video about something a week, or whatever that is. But I don't think it needs to be a priority every day to do something new. I think it's just about having consistency in what you're doing. But yeah, then it's more of an ad hoc thing to kind of have a look at and calibrate on, are you going in the right direction? Are you working on the right things? And then taking action if you think that the two aren't coming together.
That's really good. That's good. Thank you, Jacqueline. So we are into the closing segment of this, which is great. So I've got two questions for you. One is, what advice will you give to other women looking to take up leadership position in the tech industry? And the second is, what would you recommend as the most important aspects of developing a personal brand?
Yeah, sure. So the advice I would give, so this is a difficult one, I know, because I think it really does depend on what kind of you want. But I think having confidence in yourself, I think there's a lot of evidence in there to show that women are a lot more susceptible to imposter syndrome. So I think having kind of confidence in yourself, building up a network of people that support that confidence as well and can help you grow, so getting allies and and just kind of building that network around you, I think is important. In nearly every job I've had, I think one thing that I've done almost naturally is there's always people you can learn from. And so I think it's about identifying those people and what you want to learn from them, and that's always, I think, helped me, and again then having confidence in what you're doing. So that's kind of my piece of advice. So what was the other question? What would you
the most important aspects of developing a personal brand?
Yeah. So I think the first thing you do need to do is think about, well, what do I want to be? No, what do I want my reputation to be? And not getting massively hung up on it. It can change, but if you don't know what you want to be known for, and it can be a generalist thing, it doesn't have to be kind of a deep knowledge on something, but if you know what you want to be known for, then one, you can communicate that to people, you can set up opportunities for yourself, people can support you with opportunities, and you can then take specific action to go in a certain direction. So I think that'd be one. I think getting regular feedback is important. So and you need to rely on your own perception of your development, but calibrating that with feedback and supplementing that with feedback, I think, is really important. So if you're not good at getting feedback, and I'm generally not good at asking for it, something that I have to make myself do, but it's really invaluable because you do get nuggets of information that you wouldn't have picked up on yourself. Yeah. And then I personally would think about not getting too hung up on the term kind of what's my personal brand. I would think about doing, first of all, kind of getting more credibility and authenticity in what you're doing, in terms of making sure you've got the right base skill sets, that you focus on doing good work and doing more of that good work, and how you amplify and talk about all the good things you're doing. And then that is kind of the sum of a personal brand. If you get too hung up on what's my personal brand, then that's where it become a bit, I think, inauthentic, or you don't necessarily feel, might not necessarily have the credibility behind it. It's, focus on getting the credibility, authenticity, doing really great work and talking about it, and then I think that's how it builds.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jacqueline. I guess that's an excellent note to finish on, and thank you for your time today. I've really enjoyed.
You're welcome. I hope it's been useful.
Yes, it has. Indeed. Yes. Thank you.
No worries.
Okay. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.